Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 77th episode of Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist and getting a couple of extra levels for our various skills. So we've got a couple of things that we're working on today. Again, if you've been watching this in a full series, this is not news to you. But we're slowly working with Mr. Kill to get him able to open up the blackened yard. A ferocious heat has scorched, even melted the stones. But, as at the bridge, it's only here and there. Horribly, here and there mostly seem to be where people happen to be standing. Charred, cracked bones scatter the yard. So, Grail, Heart, and Winter for that. Some of our other options in terms of moving through the house, we've got the Rustling Stair, which is Moon and Scale. We've got the Shrieking Gull Cloud, which is Edge and Sky. We have the Slithering Fountain. It's worth mentioning that Sky would not be a bad time, or Moon for that matter, would not be a bad time. It is not a bad time to follow up on those because that is something that the fishermen will have. Sorry, I think we already talked about the Rustling Stair, so we can also move on through the Dawn period with the Slithering Fountain, which is Edge, Knock, and Scale. Or we could try and move down to the Room of Rusts, and in this case, there's a slight appeal for the Room of Rusts. Scale is something that when we get to spring, we'd be able to use one of the Cornish miners, or alternatively, because Denzel is our friend, it doesn't cost anything to hire him, and he has the forge ready to go. Same argument, I suppose, with the Edge. The only thing is that the Wormwood Dream only gives me 3 Edge. There's a different skill that will give me even more. So plenty of options in terms of where we open up, but it's still a question in terms of where I just want to be putting my effort and where basically kind of where do I think is the greatest benefit in terms of advancing the playthrough. So there are interesting areas, particularly once you open up the Room of Rusts. There's definitely some interesting areas that you can get to and potentially helpful ones. I'd also like to get into this room in particular at some point. But I don't know. My heart has kind of been set on the Cucurbit for a while anyway. And as always, I still want to actually handle all of the books. So with that in mind, I think I actually need to start making some choices here as far as my skills are concerned. So I took some time and I actually wrote down a rough division of the various skills. Actually, you know what? Before I do any of this, let's take a minute here and rearrange some of the skills. I'm sure this will all get shuffled around in a little bit, but so this should be all the 2s and 3s and such. So I took a look at a few candidates that are sort of at the level 2. So for Bosk, I actually have quite a few. So there's Furs and Feathers. I think Spices and Savors was one. Desires and Dissolutions was also another one. Where did I put that? That's right, I think Desires and Dissolutions is one I haven't picked up yet. I was kind of basing this off of a previous map that I did. So I'm reluctant to add Herbs and Infusions just because it gives me an improvement on corruptions. And then Orchids and Narcotics is already at level 3. So, I mean, one option I do have here would be I take the Orchids and Narcotics and I put it in Herbs and Infusions instead, but I don't think I'm quite ready to work on that yet. I think I can still probably justify moving Orchids and Narcotics up a spot. I don't know, the more I think of it, though, the more putting Herbs and Infusions... Sorry, I'm doubting myself here. But one of the things I was thinking at a bare minimum that I can do... I can find whichever one of these gets me a heart, and I can put that at the level 2 position. So for instance, Furs and Feathers provides a heart. Actually, I might want to hold off on Furs and Feathers. I think Spices and Savors provides a heart. This one I think I want to hold back on this particular one. Okay, so yeah, you know what? Just at a start, let's say spices and savors. There's no sacrifice without sustenance. Served cold. Oak, earth, ice, ash, stars, blood. Drown to quenching. Serve. That's Bosk. So what this means now... In fact, the funny thing is, had I made that decision, I wouldn't have needed to restore the health, but let's not worry about that. So one of the kind of conclusions that follows from this, it doesn't necessarily help me with orchids and narcotics, but everything else on that list, like furs and feathers and such, can now go at level 3. Now with Path and Pilgrim, there's sort of a similar story. Now that's already up to level 3 here, but let's think about... Also, I don't know what I was saying about we don't have desires and dissolutions. It's right here, and it's a level 3 one, so this is actually going to have its own set of problems. But let's not think about this one right now. Path and Pilgrim, I believe it's preservation or birdsong, but let's go down the birdsong path because that we talked about that before. Also, just Nyctodromy is going to be really crowded, and I think the first one I was going to work on for Nyctodromy was Disciplines of the Hammer. So how do I want to do this? So Wolf Stories is a potential candidate, as is Sea Stories. And I suppose the big thing about a lot of these is that they don't... these particular ones don't have... They don't, like, help me remove curses or anything like that. So I still haven't quite solved the problem of, like, okay, I've got Path and Pilgrim up to 4. Did I really get anything out of that? The fact of the matter is I don't really think I get a lot out of that because I already have other candidates to move this stuff up higher. But for the sake of the argument, let's say for Birdsong, we'll put Wolf Stories. Actually, I should be a little more intelligent than that. Okay, Stitching and Binding. Okay, more Path and Pilgrim. Sacralamea, Ragged Cross. Okay, Ragged Crossroads is actually a free one now. Ooh, actually, so if I take the Ragged Crossroads from the Sun's Lament, I can use that to boost Edict's Marshal. That's appealing. Okay. There's actually also an argument with weaving and not working. I should just lock that into Birdsong, and then that frees me up for the Moth and the Heart for other things. Yeah, you know what? The more I think of that... let's take weaving and not working. Valentine de Wolf. What remains? Cut a thread and a tapestry remains. Birdsong follows the thread. Okay, now technically neither of these really solve my immediate problems of Path and Pilgrim and Orchids and Narcotics. But it's at least... I'm sort of on the path. Whist goes to Mr. Kill. If I'm leveling up Orchids and Narcotics, I can use my health or my core. I have one that I can already deploy towards it. So I use these two. I can use this to maybe do some gathering. Yeah. Okay, so let's level up orchids and narcotics, I think is the way I want to do this. Okay. So I was having doubts for a moment. So I've already got the satisfaction. We will get either nectar or grail. So gossip works for one. We just need one more. Okay, inexplicably I just used the I just used the element of the soul I intended to use for orchids and narcotics, so no exploration after all. I guess I'll use the Fost then. Excuse me. And for that, we'll use the Asite Supplications. This still gives me the metal. If I don't think we're going to find any books inside the Blackened Yard, but it at least gives me it gives me the option. Also, do we have anything we're restoring? We don't. So let's take a moment here. I guess I can bring back a core. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I'm sitting before the fire in the sweet bones, with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Okay, down to the Grushians. We will talk with Mr. Kill about whist. We'll watch for what lies ahead, and then in a few seconds we should get our hindsight from Introduction to the Histories, and he'll be ready to open up the door. Now, there's a reasonable question. If we're trying to level up Path and Pilgrim, it's Rose and Scale. So it's not that hard for me to get the relevant memories. We could try and drag out Mr. Kill for a little bit longer and try to get him to generate the memories. But in this case here, I'm willing to sacrifice one of the memories. Actually, one of the things I might be able to do is we could use the metal and maybe the... I don't even think I need to use the Stolen Secret, come to think of it. But I can get the Old Wound generated. That's a potential option for the metal. I don't know, we'll figure it all out. Okay, Introduction to the Histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian Claude Hersault describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length of the iniquities of one Julian Cosley, a former colleague who Hersault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems Cosley advised Hersault early in the writing of the book, but Hersault later became suspicious. Hersault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims that the so-called second history is the true one. Excuse me. Okay. There's a 10 for winter. I think I'll probably use the metal to generate the Old Wound. Asite Supplications, prayers addressed to the Horned Axe by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should pass not, let our enemies pass unto their deserved end. One prayer describes how sufficient moon aspect can be used with Tridesma Hyra with almost any egg to hatch the stone's children, the sky's daughters, the sea's sons. Okay, so there's the impulse for orchids and narcotics. And 3 flowers hath the tree. Ernestine Peterhans records her observations of the growths of trees and flowers around the isle, and the omens and portents she attempts to draw from them, particularly the yew tree in Earl Brian's meadow, whose flowerings are sometimes eccentric. Ernestine observes that in years when the tree flowers black, troubling secrets arise. When it flowers red, war and fires follow, and that no DeWolf heir has ever been born in a year when it flowers white. Ernestine attempts to use the tree's growths to advantage in her business affairs, but it fails. She is evidently very concerned when Hendrik de Wolf's grandson Giles runs off with the pale trollop Hafren in a year when the tree flowers white. She begins to fear that she has entirely misinterpreted all the relevant omens. She is deeply concerned for the continuation of the de Wolf line and prays for Giles' return. So we'll turn that into another level for Orchids and Narcotics right away. Orchids and Narcotics is not necessarily my favorite out of these to level up, but it still feels a little odd to have the mismatch. I'll do a few more mismatches in future, though, just so that I can have better now. And I think I'll use this to make some money. We did spend some time buying back a few of our elements of the soul, and we made more progress than I thought we were going to on the skills. So, with the Coffer Maker's assistance, the blackened yard, a ferocious heat has scorched, even melted the stones, but at the bridge, it's only here and there. Horribly, here and there mostly seem to be where people happen to be standing. Charred, cracked bones scatter the yard. So this will take a minute. We'll have just enough time. If there's something interesting in here, I'll still be able to use the metal to catalog it. But failing that, I figure we can also... well, I could use it to make money, but I think I'll just use it with the Practic Garden dummy. And we'll keep this intuition overnight. Skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So this one's a little more exalted than I wanted it. There's going to be a couple of projects that I undertake in the next few turns. So we've committed weaving and knotworking, which means that I can now take that weaving and knotworking book. In fact, I want to take a moment. So put that and this. So where I can, I want to try and take the books that will... the books that I can use to level up certain skills or treat them as freebies. So a really good use of weaving and knotworking with its heart would actually be to improve drums and dances, because of course that's the way that I can get access to the Savage Hymn. And the Savage Hymn has proven useful when it comes to things like leveling up stone stories. Okay. Jail Yard. The jail was nicknamed the Cucurbit for the alchemist's flask that distills and refines. Prisoners would become better versions of themselves, realigned to responsibility. Hence, though it would have been much safer to confine the more potent inmates to their sealed cells, Governor Collars insisted even they should be allowed fresh air and exercise. So we've got the worm-eaten hull. This place bears the unmistakable traces of worms, the serpents which are no serpents. They are almost certainly gone, but we'll take no chances. Worms are difficult to evict from buildings, but much harder to evict from people. So this one's pretty interesting because I could use both Mr. Kill and Denzel, and in fact we could basically do the same thing we did with Mr. Kill, but then we could just add the U-blank. The Blackened Staff Room, on the other hand, that's a Grail or Heart, so probably we would want a Storm for that. It depends, but I can definitely see this being more of a Storm challenge. Alright, as I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Not going to bother doing anything else at the Sweet Bones tonight, and sort of as expected, there wasn't anything special in the yard, so we'll take the Practic Garden dummy, we'll take the Edict's Marshal, we'll make an old wound, explore an old wound to awaken the violent resonances within, and I forgot that it's a moon, not an edge. So not too much else for us to handle. I will put a thought to Path and Pilgrim, but really I can see a couple of tasks for the next couple of days. So definitely reading the True and Complete Accounting, the Asclepian Mysteries of the Roots of the House. I want to try and maybe make some ink because I don't see us... So for the drums and dances, it's not really going to take us anything to level that up. I believe we can also use... Yeah, the Geminiad would also be one that we can move or use to move that up. So we'll level up Path and Pilgrim. I can use a Fet for that possibly. Or actually, no, we can use a Health. I'll use the tryst to make the ink. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. The wound is visible, the pain is not. And I suppose whenever I want, I can follow through on the worm-eaten hull. One thing that is rather nice, the more I move here, there's actually another kitchen in this room, so it would help me when preparing for the salons. But obviously that's not something I really need to put a lot of thought into, especially because I think the kinds of leveling I do with the various skills and what I wind up committing to the Tree of Wisdoms will actually have some bearing on what guests I want to invite. The way of thinking about this is right now I only have like the one whist or the one metal, but if I make some real progress on some of my some of the branches of the Tree of Wisdoms, I can definitely see a situation where I would I'd invite sort of just a whole different roster of guests, and I do want to start working towards that. So anyways, let's we are going to focus on the Catwink while I can. Brew an ink that will ward off worms, though only the least of their kind. I think we're going to leave Mr. Kill... We won't worry about getting his levels yet. The true and complete counting of the Asclepian mysteries. I thought I might have had a 4 heart. Doesn't... Well, it's kind of the same both ways, so in this case we can add the mop and bucket. So the question here is, do I have... The shaft's probably the best option here. So heart onwards, I can master this mystery, enough heart to match mystery heart. Sun's Lament, similar story. We can use Ava's Desk, and... I mean, the Edict's Martial on its own is enough. And I suppose for that one, the Arab probably makes the most... Actually, we'll use the core. But while I'm at it, I'll also restore an element of the soul with a glass of water when the time comes. Okay, so I do have the option of inviting someone for memories. I don't think that's a bad idea, so we'll use the health to speak with Denzel. I'm always welcome at Denzel's smithy. Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. But I think in the interests of making progress with Path and Pilgrim, I will get the memories that I need for that particular one. So we'll do... actually... potentially I could have tried to read the Geminiad, but... Well... Let's just juggle a couple things around here. Let's see how far away I am from being able to do that. So... Drums and dances... I'm going to be leveling that this one up, so I don't quite see the need to move heaven and earth to make it happen. So we can get up to 6. So really at this point I'd be waiting on the storm. But I can definitely see... I can see a good attempt on this down the line. Excuse me. Okay. Let's get back on task. So yes, these are... Okay, so none of these are currently working towards my goal. I will be getting the intuition in a few seconds, so we really just need 2 elements of the soul to work on this. I can't see myself using the whist for anything but money. So we'll use a confounding parable for that because Denzel won't generate that himself. Let's try... I can't remember where we were on these. We'll do left to right again. I think I always wind up doing this and I never get to the end of the list, but I really don't want to go over to the side. Okay, so that's one. So I need one more scale or rose, and ideally it is one that doesn't, that Denzel doesn't make, but I think that's too much to hope for with the current batch. So I will settle for Etery After. Alright, now I could actually already line up a few more memories to prepare for these books finishing, but I think I want to see what those books give me first, and then we'll move on bringing more memories in. Another snowy day. So I kind of regret giving up the whist so quickly, but let's take the opportunity to get another. Actually, I think I'm gonna have to pour out some water. Maybe I should get more than one pitcher of water. Yeah, that's a shame. I don't think I want to go. I'm not going to bring in Mr. Kill for the Worm-Eaten Hall. Like, it's an option, but I'm sort of comfortable letting that run by. Speak to Denzel. He might even reply. But I am going to use the snow to make another. I'll use the snow to make another Solomon's preparation. And I think I'm going to drop two pitchers of water. Okay, let's do this one at a time. So, water, snow, Arab. I'm already using quenching squellings. All right. I can, however, open this package. I guess we can use the Arab for that. What ship lost this? Sorry, I know I'm all over the map. Okay, pour it out. I still also need to put some thought into actually getting rid of the various curses on all of these books. But as I've said many times, right, like the real challenge here is that of course it's another intuition. The real challenge here is that I have so many books already that unless these happen to unlock a really powerful skill that I want, there's a good argument to just handle these first and then, and then move on to the others. Okay, The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar, but I think there's a secret that all these artisans know. I think that there's a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. Etery After, an anonymous erotic novel occasionally claimed to have been written by Ava de Wolf, although at least 2 duels were fought in her honor to avenge this slander. The novel graphically depicts details of Madame Etery's various imprisonments, ravishments, and escapes in the debauched Commonwealth of Tinctures and its neighbor, the Pious Atrament. it becomes apparent that many of Etery's lovers and pursuers, Catwink, Houndsgall, Niliki, are transparent allegories for inks, and that Etery is an embodiment of knowledge pinned to paper to her mingled delight and dismay. The author only half commits to the metaphor, though, and it clearly is at least as interested in titillation as revelation. And another Catwink. Speaking of Catwink. Okay. So again, we already said we're committing to doing the brewing the inks. And then we have what we need for Path and Pilgrim. I know we're at time, but I will take the time to level up Path and Pilgrim before we finish off for today. Bit of a lumpy day, but I'm not unhappy with how it turned out. I think what I'll do here is I'll switch... yeah, I think I'll switch out the Fear. The Fear would potentially be useful for the... leveling up Edict's Marshal. But although technically I could use the Confounding Parable as well. I'm just trying to move anything that could potentially be replaced into leveling something up. So, Path and Pilgrim. We'll add the health. So I'm holding out hope that I can use the Fet to go to the moor. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. So again, I don't have some deep abiding love for Path and Pilgrim. But at this point here, again, I'm trying to make some progress on the Tree of Wisdoms. And the fact of the matter is, if I just leave this all for the Salons, I'm going to be at like level 9 of everything before I read all of the various books. So this is sort of forcing me to make some decisions to move forward, and we'll see where this goes. For the rest of the playthrough, we will digest what we get from the True and Asclepian Mysteries. It's not that... I mean, both of these are only going to give me one lesson, so it's not going to be that hard. It will be, for Edict's Marshal, I will need to generate a bunch of memories. That's the reason why I did bring Denzel in. But for today, this is really just kind of the start of trying to... One, make a bit of progress towards leveling up certain key skills, also getting a few lessons that will allow me to sort of dislodge a couple of the skills that I want to move higher anyway. And then that will be a nice little milestone for me to say, okay, so now that I've made a bit more progress on, X, Y, and Z, what am I looking at in terms of where we can go in future? So a good example of this, we've slowly been moving up Stone Stories. It's now a 5 nectar, 6 scale. So we've got the Berry book. For that, if I add a health, well, now we're up to 6. So that's really one impulse and a mortar and pestle away from being able to read it. And this one happens to be Leaves and Thorns, it was Herbs and Infusions that I was thinking of for getting rid of corruption. So never mind about that one. But you can kind of see the idea here, right? That some of the moves that I've been making in here are opening up a few of those texts that have eluded me. And particularly for those ones that deal with skills that I've committed, I'm going to be able to start pushing my Tree of Wisdoms in a few certain directions. And I'm more or less committed now to trying to get a few of these up to 8 and 9, just so that I can have some clear options in terms of where I take all this. But again, that is for the next episode. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.